All good? Perfect. So we now realized how to find the slope and the y-intercept through the equations, these two types of equations. On the other hand, the one missing part is whenever we're given another form, which is mainly graph, whenever we're given a graph, or points in the form of points written next to each other, like xy, x2 or x1, y1. A graph in this form right there with a line in it, so we know that this is a linear equation. Or maybe we could be given a table, and a table of values could look like this, with like maybe x and y, or it could be f and t, whatsoever. The important thing is that they're two variables and they're all both to the power of 1, and they're increasing at a constant rate. So as long as we're adding or subtracting by the same amount here on the y, this is definitely linear. طيب, what do we do whenever we have any of these 3 points or any of these 3 things? Then we need to do what we call rise over run. And the rise here represents the movement up and down, which means it's y2 minus y1. While the run represents the movement right and left, so it's x2 minus x1. برضو, let's see an example for that one. Let's say it's saying a line passes through the points 2 and 3, and the point 3 and y. This line has a slope of -3 or -2. What is the value of y? So you're given 2 points. So apparently whenever you're given points, as we said earlier, we're thinking of this rule, rise over run. This is the only rule we're thinking of. And you're given already the slope as well. The slope here is -2. So what should we do? We'll go back to what we know. What we know is whenever we have points, we calculate the slope through y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put y minus 3, this y, minus this y, over x2, which is 3 minus 2. And I'm going to have to say that this has to be equal to the slope that they told me, because they said that these two lines has a slope of -2. So once I calculate the slope, it should be equals to -2. So now I have an equation. I can actually solve this equation and find the value of y, which means I'll have y minus 3 over 3 minus 2 is just 1, equals to -2, which means y minus 3 is now equals to -2, which means y is equals to -2 plus 3, which means y is equal 1. So now I know the value of y. Makes sense, everyone? All good? Messages, replies, give me feedback. Awesome. طيب, what else do we need to know about the linear equations that's important? The next important thing regarding linear equations is whenever we mention the word parallel lines. So whenever the word parallel lines is mentioned in the test, this only means, or this only resembles the slope. So whenever we see parallel lines, or whenever they say it's parallel to this thing or whatsoever, we know that they're representing the slope. So what is it about parallel lines and the slope? Parallel lines have equal slopes. That's what's important. So whenever we read parallel lines, we know that they have equal slopes. How could that work? It works this way. Let's say I'll give you a graph that looks like this. two lines, and I'm telling you that this is line L and this is line M, and I said that line L is parallel to line M, and you're given the coordinates of line L while not given fully the coordinates of M. What does that mean? It means, let's say you know the value of this point. Let's say it's 5 and 0. Let's say also you know the values of this point. Let's say it's 0 on the x, 4 on the y. This one is -1 and 1, while this one is 4, and we don't know the value of the y over here. He's asking for this y. What is the value of y? So whenever we just said that whenever the word parallel lines is mentioned, this is representing the slope, and this should also trigger right away equal slopes. So since those are parallel to each other, I'm thinking they must have the same slope. So I'll go for the line that has everything in it, that has no missing terms, which is line L. This has no missing terms. I can easily calculate the slope. And since I'm given points or a graph or a table, I have to go for rise over run. So I'll calculate the slope of line L to get, so I'll apply rise over run to get the slope of line L, which means I'll do 4 minus 0 over 0 minus 5. That should get me -4 over 5. This is apparently the slope of line L. And since they said that line L and M are parallel, this means they have equal slopes, which means that line M as well has a slope of -4 over 5. So how am I supposed to calculate the line M, the slope of line M, if I'm given only these points? I'm supposed to go for also rise over run, which means y minus 1 over 4 minus -1 should be equal to the same slope that we just got, which is -4 over 5. So let's solve this thing. Now I'll have -4 over 5 as it is equals y minus 1 over 4 minus -1, which means it's 4 plus 1, which becomes then 5. Now, since both of them have the same denominator, I can easily say that this up here is equal to this up there. And I can say that y minus 1 is equals to -4, which means y is equals to -3. So now I have the value of the y that they wanted. Does that make sense? All good? Type. Moving on from the parallel lines towards what we call perpendicular lines. So when they mention perpendicular lines, this means one thing. They're still talking about the slope, and that the slope of the perpendicular lines is what we call a negative reciprocal. يعني إيه negative reciprocal? So let's say if we have this line right here and we have another line here that's perpendicular on it. We know that this line has a slope of 3. What's the slope of the other line that's perpendicular on it? It becomes -1 over 3. ازاي بنشقلب ونغير الساين. يعني if I have a line that has a slope of 2 over 3, the perpendicular line should have a slope of -3 over 2. If we have a slope of -4, the perpendicular line should become +1 over 4. If we have a slope of whatsoever بقى خلاص, this is, I think by now is easy, -1 over 5, then the slope of the perpendicular one is +5. بنقلب, بنفlip, and then we change the sign. So the same exact idea that worked for this example right here could work on the perpendicular lines. And since we know that the perpendicular lines have negative reciprocals, instead of saying that these two lines should have equal slopes, we should have flipped and changed the sign if this is negative. And then every other step is still the same. Type. Finally, لا خلاص ممكن نقف هنا دلوقتي ونكمل الأول حل وبعد كده I can give you another idea then. So here's what I'd like you please to do. I'd like you to head to the Google Classroom account, go back to P1, linear functions, this one, and start working over there. This one should have a total of exactly 4 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, actually 5 questions. That's good. So a total of 5 questions. I'll give you 10 minutes to solve all 5 questions. Please try to finish within those 10 minutes. Don't take longer than that. I'm sending the link برضو anyway for the link for the form on the chat. So in case you don't want to access it through Google Classroom itself, you can just open the chat and you'll find the link for the first form. Whoa. So if you're all ready by now, 10 minutes for the first form, P1, 10 minutes starts now. So these are basically types of questions that goes into a bit more depth than the examples we've explained. So they apply the same concept, but on a bit more detail and using a bit more things to confuse you, and that's all. So let's start with number 6. It says a line having a slope of -2/3 passes through the points A and B, and what's the value of K? And you can see that K is part of the coordinates of those points. I can also easily say that this is x, and this is the x of each coordinate, and this is, let's not use green so that it's visible. Sorry, this is the y, and this is the y. So whenever I see the word slope, that's what I know, that's what I learned. And whenever I see 2 points with the word slope, I calculate the slope. خلاص, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll say -1 minus 5 over -2k minus, and then open a bracket because it's 2 minus k inside of that bracket. All of this should be equals to -2/3 as they said, because they said that the slope is actually -2/3. Now what I can do next is simplify this. -1 minus 5 will become -6. I'll distribute the negative on both numbers inside, or both terms inside. So I'll have -2k minus 2 plus k, which means -2k plus k will become -k واحدة minus 2. All of this is equal still to -2/3. Now, once I have two fractions that are equal to each other, I just need to cross multiply. And once that happens, we're basically multiplying the things that are connected by each other, and it's equal to each other. What does that mean? Yani -6 times 3, which is -18, is supposed to be equal to -2, open a bracket, and put the negative k minus 2 in there. Distribute the -2, so I'll have -18 equals positive 2k plus 4. Move the 4 to the other side, so I'll have 2k equals to -22 actually, which means that k will be equals to -11. This is the value of k. This is D. All good? Is this clear? Does it make sense? Replies, please, replies. Right, let's see the next one. Let me see. Right. Other algorithm. 28. 28 is mainly just an understanding, whether you do understand what a linear function represents and what the slope and the y-intercept represents. So they're depending entirely on the keywords that I've expressed at the beginning for the y-intercept and the slope. It says here, a gaming website charges its clients by number of games downloaded, G. So G represents the number of games. So as you can see now, for me, the most important thing is what each letter represent. And if you notice, I did not stop until the first full stop appeared. So I read the whole sentence all together عشان ما افهمش حاجة غلط. A gaming website charges its clients by number of games downloaded, G. It says if the total fees F, so fees is the total, F is the total fees of a gamer are given by the equation F equals FG plus 88. I'll stop here because I can easily tell when I look at this, and that should be your thing as well. When I look at this, I can easily tell that this is a linear equation. How did I know that? Because they're both two variables and they're both to the power of 1, and it's following the same form of y equals mx plus b, the slope-intercept form. So before I even read anything, I understand that 7 is the slope and that 88 is the y-intercept. Now, once you read the remaining of the question, it says, what's the best interpretation of 88? So what's the best interpretation of the y-intercept? Because I know that the 88 is the y-intercept. Is it the price of one downloaded game? Is it the subscription fees of the website? Is it the average number of games downloaded per player? The weight pair is a keyword for the slope. مبدئيا. So this one is definitely not one of them. The fees of downloading 7 games, this is weird. It has nothing to do with any of that. We know that the fees, by the way, should be represented by F. So F should be the fees of downloading a number of games. So it's either A now or B. Now, the price of downloading one game is actually the slope, because that's the rate. But anyway, the subscription fees is the 100% correct answer. Why? Because this is the thing that's only paid once. That's the thing that you just need to pay at the very beginning one time. وخلاص. The subscription fee that you pay for the website, and then again, you pay other than that for each game you download a specific amount. The amount that you pay for each game is the 7, while the 88 is the amount you pay for the membership each month. Does that make sense? Are we all clear? Muhammad, I'm sorry, I just saw your message, ya habibi. Which one were you talking about, Muhammad? 27, the one before that? حاضر. طب this one, is it okay? I'll go back to the previous one. Are we sure everyone? We're all good? Rama, I didn't hear anything yet, and I think I couldn't see your response yet. We're all good? طيب. Muhammad, I'll get back to here, ya habibi, in a second. I mainly just did the slope thing, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and I got this. I made this equal to the slope that was given. And then I cross-multiplied to find the value of this k. So I solved the equation step by step, multiplied this by that, got this one, moved everything to the other side until I got that k is equal to negative 11. I know this is very quick, but if you don't understand it, just stay with me after the class for like 1 minute. I'll say it very quickly. You can if this is a section with a calculator, but if it's not with a calculator, you need to, yeah, Mahmoud, you can. Shift solve you can, as long as k is to the power of 1. As long as the variable is to the power of 1, we can use shift solve. Type. If we're going to number 3 now, number 3 could be solved many different ways, by reasoning كده, or by any common sense, or by using just the math of it. Basically, if a salesperson receives a base pay of 800 EGP per month and a 5% commission on sales, what is the equation relating sales and the monthly income for this person? So apparently A, first of all, that's what I noticed. In A is the thing that represents the sales, and B is the things that represents the monthly income. So if he's asking what is the equation relating the sales with the income, definitely the income should be equal. Or in order to calculate your income, you will need to do things to the sales, related to the sales. What are those things? How can you calculate your salary if you're taking a base pay of 800 per month? يعني أنا كده كده باخد ال 800 كده كده كل شهر. So how can I calculate the remaining? Plus 5% commission. يعني إيه commission؟ commission يعني لو أنت مثلا بتبيع عربيات بتبقى بتاخد مرتب عادي جدا، أو properties specifically معروفة قوي في الموضوع ده، إن أنت لو بتبيع properties you take a salary already every month a specific amount، خلاص معروف. بس كمان other than that there is a commission على البروبرتيز اللي انت بعتها. So لو انت بعت مثلا بمليون you take a percentage out of this million. That's what we call a commission. And the percentage always has to be multiplied by something. فال 5% دي لازم تتحسب من حاجة. So عشان كده قال ال 5% دي on A, on sales. So the 5% must be multiplied by the sales, which is A. So I should put here 5% multiplied by A. But then if I want to remove the percentage sign, I will need to divide this by 100. So it will become 800 plus 0.05 A. This is how I'm going to express my total income, which is B. So then C is definitely incorrect and D is definitely incorrect, because it's not that the sales is equal to something relating to the income. It's the income that's equal to something relating using the sales. So it's either A or B. And I can tell easily that the 5% is on the sales, so it should be multiplied by the A. So then B is definitely the correct answer. Does that make sense? Are we all clear? Good. Type. Moving on to number 7. It's just that I know the graph is a bit blurry, but the points, I think once you zoom in, is a bit clearer. These points right there, or this point right there, is -2 and m, while this point right here is -1 and 1. This point right there is 0 and 2, and this point is 2 and 2. They're saying that these two lines are perpendicular, and we learned that whenever we see the word perpendicular, we're thinking of على طول this hints slope. And since it's perpendicular, then this hints that they have negative reciprocal slopes. Which means if one of them has a slope of 2, the other one is -0.5. So I'll get the slope of whatever line that has all its points given. So I can easily tell that this line, line F, has this point right here, -1 and 1, and it has the other point 0, 2. They're all complete. Nothing is missing فيهم. So let's use this to calculate the slope. And we're going to say that 2 minus 1 over 0 minus bracket -1. This should give me the slope of line F, which will be 1 over 1, which is 1. This is line F. So the perpendicular line on it, which is line G, should be -1/1, which is -1. This is the slope of line G. This is the slope of the perpendicular line. So now I have the slope of the perpendicular line -1. So I'll use the points of the perpendicular line to calculate its slope. This is G, this is the perpendicular one. These are the points. So I'll say now that I'm supposed to put m minus 2 over -2 minus 2. That should give me the slope of -1. I now have an equation to solve. So m minus 2 over -2 minus 2 يعني -4 equals to -1. This -4 moves to the other side. So يبقى عندي m minus 2 equals +4. Then m would be equals to 6. A is the correct answer. Does that make sense? Last one is a bit tricky, so it requires شوية تفكير. But anyway, it says here that in the xy plane, the line determined by the points 3 and m and 12, passes through the origin. And what's the origin? The origin is basically the point 0, 0. This is what we call the origin, this point right here, between the x-axis, between the x and y-axis. Which of the following could be the value of m? What's the value of m? This m. So if 3 lines, I'm sorry, Muhammad, do you want me to repeat which part? Number 7 يا حبيبي كلها? I'm sorry يا جماعة, give me a second. So محمد أنا depended all على كلمة perpendicular. أول ما قال لي perpendicular فهمت إن السلوب المفروض يبقى negative reciprocal. فجبت السلوب بتاع اللاين اللي أنا عندي البوينتس بتاعته اللي هو لاين F الأول. البوينتس بتاعته كانت 0 و 2 negative 1 و 1. لما جبت السلوب طلع لي 1. So من السلوب ده جبت السلوب بتاع اللاين بقى التاني اللي هو G اللي هو المفروض يكون perpendicular عليه. ازاي اجيب السلوب ده؟ هو negative 1 over 1 يعني كام؟ يعني negative 1. So دلوقتي بقى عندي السلوب بتاع لاين G اللي هو perpendicular. كنت راجع للجراف عند اللاين G، شفت البوينتس بتاعته اللي هما negative 2 و M و 2 و 2 اللي هما lined بالأحمر. كنت حاسب لهم هما كمان سلوب، قلت M minus 2 over negative 2 minus negative 2 كل ده equals to negative 1 اللي هي السلوب اللي أنا جبته. I solved the equation دي بقى negative 2 minus 2 طلعت negative 4 وديتها الناحية التانية بالتايمز وجبت ال M بكام؟ Does that make sense يا محمد؟ Thank you يا حبيبي. طيب now before we move to I didn't finish 12 أصلا. So in this one يعني I was just saying that whenever if we have on the same line 3 points, then let's say A, B, and C. If I calculated the slope of B and C, it should be equal to the slope of B and A, or equal كمان to the slope of A and C. يعني لو خدت أي 2 points على اللاين لازم يطلع لي نفس السلوب. طيب I have now ادي 1 point و 1 point. What's the third point? It's the origin اهي اللي هي قلنا عليها 0 0. So we have 3 and M, we have M and 12, we have the origin which is 0 and 0. Now let's calculate the slope of this with that مثلا. It will become M minus 0 over 12 minus 0, which is M over 12. This slope should be equal to the slope of this line, this point, with this point برضو اللي هي 0 0. ما هم كلهم على نفس اللاين. So M بقى دي هنا minus 0 over 3 minus 0 should get me M minus over 3. Now this one and the other one are supposed to be equal. So M over 12 is supposed to be equal to let me كده بس make sure that I did the correct calculations. No, I didn't do this one right. No, I actually did. Yeah, I actually did. Anyway, so yeah, m minus 0 and so on, 3 minus, the other one was m minus 0 and 3 minus 0. So it became as 3, so this one is m over 3. Now what's the number that could be divided by 12 and still be equal to the same number when it's divided by 3 out of these choices? The only option is D, which is the 0 itself. No, I think there's something wrong. Give me a second. I know, I think what I did is wrong is here is these two. M over 3 and the other one should be 12 over M. Oh, I got it. Yeah, I know. There was a mistake. This one should be 12 minus 0 over M minus 0. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. This one should come out as 12 over M. This is the slope that should be equal to the other one, 12 over M. So now I'll actually have to cross multiply in order to get the slope, which will give me m squared equals to 3 times 12, which is 36. So this says that m must be equals to root 36. And root any number is supposed to be equal to positive or negative the answer, which is 6. So that's why the answer here goes as negative 6. The answer is A, but not D. You see the mistake that I did here? Does that make sense? Yes or no, please? Or are you confused? طيب, before we head to next form, a few things that I'd like to discuss. Now let's say that we were talking about مثلا this one here, this case here, this question. When we had this function, this is a linear function definitely, and this is supposed to represent in the 88 is the y-intercept and 7 is the slope. And we said that the 88 here represented then the subscription fee. What does the slope then, what would the slope represent in this case? Now, since the slope is multiplied by g, I want you to focus معايا شوية في الحتة دي. I know it may be شوية confusing. Since the slope is multiplied by g, which is the gains, and the f, which is the y, المفروض دي ال x ودي ال y صح؟ ال y هنا المفروض represent ايه؟ أو ال f المفروض represent ايه؟ فلوس اللي هي الفيز. while ال x المفروض represent ايه؟ ال gains, number of gains. And 7 is supposed to represent ايه؟ ال slope. Isn't the slope originally rise over run? Which means that the slope is the change in y over the change in x. Which means that اللي فوق دايما المفروض يكون ال y's يعني ال f, واللي تحت المفروض يكون ال x's يعني ال g. Which means لو ال slope ب 7 اللي هي 7 over 1 على كل 1 g, لأن ال 1 هي اللي بتاعت ال g هي بتاعت ال x, على كل 1 g قصادها في $7 للفيز. So once I look at a slope like this one, I should be able to tell إن كل 1x بيحصل لها this amount of the slope في ال y. يعني لو عندي another equation, let's say t equals 12 minus 3p, السلوب هنا كام؟ negative 3. Let's say the t represents time. أو بلاش time عشان time دي حاجة constant. It represents total. While p represents people مثلا. So every decrease, so the slope is negative 3 over 1. So every increase of one person, 1x اللي هو 1 person, decreases the total because it's minus 3, decreases the y by 3. Does that make sense ولا أنا بقوله ده confusing قوي؟ أنا بحاول أفهمكم حاجة عشان ده مش رول أوي، بس لو فهمتوها it will make things much easier. What do you understand? If anyone would يعني يتبرع ويقول لنا هو فهم إيه، أنا هعرف أخلي الموضوع كمان أسهل. Anyone? Come on, please wake up. ميرسي جدا يا جماعة بجد. ميرسي أوي. طب I hope once we solve the next form you'll understand what I'm talking about, because there's a question that discusses this idea. So please head to P2. P2 still has 5 questions. Before برضو we go to P2 معلش, there's one more thing that I want you to understand. There's something very repetitive عامة in all tests called scatter plot. Scatter plot is basically scattered points on an XY axis, and most of the time these points head towards a specific line, or they align around a line that's imaginary, even that might not be graphed. But it seems like those points are aligned through this line. This line, that's an imaginary line, is called the line of best fit. So whenever we have scattered points كده, we try to look for a line of best fit. If the points are close to the line of best fit, then this is a strong relationship. So if the points are close to the line, not very far away, هنا كده وهنا وبتاع, then this is a strong relationship. On the other hand, if I have another XY axis with the points that are scattered this way, this is a weak relationship, because if you can tell here, the points are very far away from the line. So this is a weak relationship. Is it a positive or a negative relationship? It depends on the line. If the line is going down, this is a negative relationship. If the line is going up, this is a positive relationship, just like the slope. If the line is going up towards the Nike sign أو مع النايك sign, يبقى ده positive. If the line عمل X كده مع النايك sign, يبقى ده negative. So this is a positive strong relationship, and this is a positive برضو weak relationship. Now, a line of best fit should always give me the expected value of something, while the actual blue points represents the actual values of something. يعني كل value من دول, let's say point دي مثلا, this point here is the actual value. This is اللي actually حصل. يعني we actually went and we checked with someone, طلع مثلا عنده الفلوس بتاعته قد كده. يعني this is an actual point. This is a point that was come out of a survey. While according to the best fit, المفروض تكون الفاليو بتاعته كانت هنا. So sometimes they would ask you about what's the difference between the value expected by the line of best fit and the actual value. This is the actual one, ال Y دي. While ايه هو ال expected اللي ماشي مع line of best fit, which is this one. This is the expected one. If you got the actual and you subtracted منها ال expected, you'll get the difference between the actual and expected. Now, if you would like, or if you would please go to part 2. As I said, it consists of 5 questions. I'll still give you 10 minutes for the 5 questions. The 10 minutes started now. يا لولو، هاي يا حبيبتي، كله تمام، معلش في كلاس. يا حبيبتي، إيه الأخبار؟ لسه لا، بس مديهم حاجات حلوة. أيوة يا حبيبتي، بقولك لسه بس مديهم حاجات يعملوها فقشطة. طبعا. أنا قدامي مثلا 8 minutes بالظبط، وبعد كده أبتدي أكمل وبعد كده أرجع تاني. مم. أوكي. طبعا. أيوة. معرفش. مم. أوكي. أوكي. آه. أوكي. أيوة أيوة. مم. 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 آه. مم. 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 حساب. مم. آه. على الواحد، يا نهار اسود. اه.
صيانة يعني ما تنظيف.
مم.
فالمهم يعني بقول لك I had a whole discussion كده، وانا يعني في نص الدiscussion بكلمه بقول له هم قالوا لك كذا كذا وبتاع، بس افهم يعني الكلام اللي اتقال. قال لي هم قالوا 200 جنيه يعني مش عارف ايه.
مم. 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 يا نهار اسود، يا نهار اسود. يا نهار اسود. وانت طبعا كنت مركزة ولا مش قوي؟ مم. آه. يا نهار اسود يا ما مالوش هو. آه. ما بالظبط، ما بالظبط. مم. 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 آه. مم. 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 آه. مم. 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 طب استنى ده أكلمك أول تاني كام ساعة. Submit your answers, please. Submit your answers. طيب, I'm again asking you please to submit your answers. We're still missing some people, okay? Now, if we're checking the first question, this was an application of the line of best fit that we were just discussing. So let's see how this works. It says the graph above shows the sales in dollars of the total mall, of the local mall, at different temperature in degrees Celsius on a certain day. Which of the following is closest to the equation of line of best fit? So it's yes, it looks like this is a scatter plot and this is the line of best fit, but it's not really a question about the line of best fit rather than a question about a line. You're given a line on an XY axis and you're trying to figure out which of those is the correct equation. So any line, whenever we see a line, we think of slope and intercept. So we try to figure out the slope and the intercept from the graph. When we look at the intercept, first of all, the intercept is something above 12, and apparently the y-axis goes in 2 units. So this one must be 14. So I know right now that the y-intercept must be 14. Now when I look at the answers, there are 2 answers with y-intercept of 14. There is this one, A, and D. So this means that B is definitely incorrect and C is incorrect. I'll go back and I'll try to get the slope now. How do I get the slope? There are 2 ways to get the slope. Either I can just count the rise at the A from one point to the other and the run at the A from one point to the other, or I can just select any 2 points on the line and calculate the slope. I would say I would select this point right here because it seems a bit accurate, easily to be found. إن الX بتاعتها ب2 والY بتاعتها ب12. I would select this one, and I would select the other one as this point here, نفسها, y-intercept نفسه, because this one has an x that's equal to 0, or y that's equal to 14. Now let's start to get the slope. It's 12 minus 14 over 2 minus 0, and that should give you 12 minus 14 is negative 2 over 2 minus 0 is 2, so it gives you negative 1. Now when you look at the answers, there's no negative 1. It's either negative 1.1 or negative 1.8. And that happened, the reason why I didn't get an accurate answer, it's because this point that I selected is not 100% accurate. There may be a difference of a few millis حتى. So then the closest to this one is definitely A, but it's not D. Does that make sense? Thank you, Judy. Now let's move to the next one. To the next one, it's a grid-in question, which means it doesn't include the multiple choices. Let's see how this works. It says in a chemistry lab, an apparatus is adjusted to measure the mass of gas released during a chemical reaction. The mass, M, so M represents the mass of gas produced by a chemical reaction at a specific time T after the reaction starts is given by this equation. So this form is used to calculate the mass of the gas produced at a specific time. يعني لو أنا حطيت ال T ب5 يبقى أنا هعرف كده الماس اللي produced after 5. محمد sorry يا حبيبي برضو I just saw the message. What first part are you talking about? السلوب والintercept ولا الintercept بس؟ طيب the slope I just selected 2 points on the line. Select أي 2 points على اللاين بس تكون point واضح الx بتاعتها بكام والy بتاعتها بكام. So I selected the point, يعني مثلا if I selected the point دي الx بتاعتها هتكون صعبة معرفش هي كام بالظبط ولا الy بتاعتها سهلة معرفش هي كام بالظبط. So I tried to select حاجة تكون موجودة شوية قريب من ال intersections وخدت منها ال x وال y وخدت كده كده برضه البوينت التانية اللي هي ال y intercept نفسه اللي هو ال 14 نفسه وعملت بيهم السلوب y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 فجبت السلوب بكام؟ لما جيت أبص على التشويسز لقيت نيجاتيف 1.1 أقرب ولا نيجاتيف 1.8 من اللي أنا جبته؟ أكيد نيجاتيف 1.1 أقرب so that's why I selected A. فاهم الفكرة يا محمد ولا مش قوي؟ You're most welcome. For this one يا جماعة again this equation, if I wanted to find at 5 seconds الجاس produced قد ايه، المفروض احط مكان ال T 5 المفروض، وبعدين بعد ما احط 5 اعمل plus 3.95 because this is what would get me the gas the mass of the gas in grams. But then هو مش بيسأل على at 10 seconds كان في mass قد ايه، هو بيسأل for every 10 seconds what is the increase in mass of gas released. So هو كده بيسأل على rate for every. doesn't the rate حتى أو every دي كلمة every دي represent بالنسبة لنا keyword for the slope? It does. So we think of the slope, but the thing is the slope is the increase not for every 10, it's the increase for every 1 المفروض. So if I need to know the increase every 10 المفروض احط ال T نفسها ب 10 فعلا بس من غير ما اعمل add لل 3.95 يعني اعمل 1.61 times ال 10 بس. This is the answer 16.1. This is the amount of gas increased for every 10 seconds. لو عملت plus ل 3.95 يبقى انا كده بجيب ال amount of gas released after 10 seconds مش for every 10 seconds. Does that make sense ولا لا؟ Because this is a very tricky question. Give me some answers. Yes, no. عمرو، راما، لوجين، محمد ومحمود. Everyone, come on. Give me some sense of where do we stand. عمر. We got various answers in this one. I hope that whoever got it wrong by now understands the reason why and how to get the correct answer. Right, checking this one. This one, it says that there's an equation of the line D. This line D passes through the point 1 and 3. This line is perpendicular. So once I saw the word perpendicular, I right away thought about the slope, and I thought about the idea of a negative reciprocal. And we said that the negative reciprocal of a slope means that if one is 2, the other one is negative 1 over 2. So we know that it passes through this point, and it's perpendicular to this line. The only reason why they told me that it's perpendicular to this line is to get the slope indirectly out of this line first. So I'll get the slope of this line, which is negative 3 over negative 2, يعني positive 3 over 2. The other line though, line D, اللي هو perpendicular, should then have a slope of negative 2 over 3 by flipping and changing the sign. This is now the slope of D. And we know that, so we know now that this is the slope, so we know that definitely A is incorrect because the slope here is 3 over 2. B is incorrect because the slope is negative 3 over 2. But C and D both have the same slope. So how do I find the y-intercept? I told you that the y-intercept must have an x that is equal to 0. يعني عشان أقول إن ده y-intercept لازم تكون الx بزيرو. So في choice C الواي انترسبت ب 3. طب ازاي الواي انترسبت ب 3؟ اذا كان البوينت دي نفسها لما كانت الاكس بتاعتها ب 1 كانت الواي ب 3. So it's impossible ان لما تكون الاكس ب 0 تبقى الواي ب 3 برضه. So this one is incorrect also. So D is the answer. But there is another way برضه to figure out the slope by still using this point. You'll say that I'm supposed to have the equation written in this form, y equals mx plus b. مكان الواي هحط الواي بتاعت البوينت اللي هي 3. مكان الام هحط السلوب اللي انا جبته اللي هو نيجاتيف 2 over 3. مكان الاكس هحط الاكس اللي هو مديهاني اللي هي ال1 plus b. This will get me 3 equals negative 2 over 3 plus b. Negative 2 over 3 تروح الناحية التانية بالبلس يبقى 11/3 equals B. So I know now the y-intercept, so I know that definitely D is the correct answer. Does that make sense? One person only got it right. So I hope that all of you understand why you got it incorrect. Judy, you're saying, can I substitute? Yeah, what do you mean by substitute into the equations? Yes, you can. You can substitute x with 1. If you substituted here x with 1, this would give you anything but 3. It's impossible that -2/3 plus 3 would be equal to 3. So it's not equal to 3. So definitely برضه C is incorrect. So D, without even trying, must be correct. صح يا جودي. This one is mainly بس an analysis of the graph, or just like you need to look at the graph and they need to check whether you do understand what the graph means. Now I kept saying that whenever we look at an xy axis we have to read the x, sorry, whenever we look at the graph we need to read the x والy axis بكام أو بإيه, sorry. So apparently the x-axis is time here and the y-axis represents distance. So I know that this is a relationship between time and distance. He's saying that Jack and John are meeting at a restaurant. The scheme above represents the drives from their offices to the restaurant. Which of the following statements is true? From their offices to the restaurant, they both reached the same point on X, which means that they both arrived to the restaurant at the same time. But they started at different distances because they started at different y's. So does that mean it took Jack longer to arrive? No, they both arrived at the same time. So A is incorrect. It took John longer to arrive? No, but they both arrived at the same time. It's either C or D. John drove to the pub at a faster speed. John drove at a faster speed. Actually, John had a shorter distance, yet he arrived at the same time. So Jack هو ده اللي definitely is the correct answer. Jack drove at a faster speed. عشان يبتدي من distance أبعد ويوصل في نفس الوقت يبقى أكيد Jack ده كان بيجري. Does that make sense? Awesome. Moving to this one, we have an equation given and we're trying to figure out which of those is the correct graph. When you look at the graph, first of all, you can tell if you did the Nike sign that this is a negative sloped line because it crosses with the negative sign, with the Nike sign. So then B must be incorrect. It's either A, C, or D because these are the ones with the negative slopes. The next thing is the y-intercept. When you look at where the graph intersects the y-axis, it intersects at 3. So -3 is incorrect. So A is incorrect. So it's either now C or D. How do I differentiate? There are two ways. You can either calculate the actual slope, select points on the graph and calculate the slope, or you can just look at the rise over run. Select any 2 points. Let's say مثلا this point here itself اللي هو ال y-intercept نفسه, and مثلا this point here. So we have a rise of 3 and a run of 5. Actually, a rise of 2 and a run of 5. So it's 2/5 right away. So it's definitely not 5/2. الرايز لازم يكون أصغر من الرن. هو ده اللي أنا واخد بالي منه لما بصيت على الجراف إن الرايز قصير والرن كبير. So it's definitely not D. So it's definitely C. Makes sense يا جماعة؟ طيب. Now, parts 3 and 4 are your homework. Please do the exit ticket now before you leave. Exit tickets are a must. Parts 3 and 4 will be covered again. Or the ones that you do so many mistakes in يعني will be covered again next class. But for right now, just please do the exit ticket before you actually leave. It's extremely important. If you do need anything, I'll be here until everyone leaves. Ah. جودي are you okay يا حبيبتي؟ انت ما كلمتيش خالص النهارده غير شويه صغيرين قوي. طب I think you forgot it. Okay. Bye.